Hi, my name's Trace and I make graphic novels and do cartooning and stuff, and I'm going to give you a few tips of how it is for me. The library asked me to do a story about cartooning in lockdown, but for me I don't call it lockdown. And they talked about isolation as well. People talk about isolation. I don't think it's like that at all. I think about this time as a time of connection and being outdoors. I'm very lucky because I live in the country in Australia, and so for me it really is an outdoor thing that's keeping me okay. And so I've been making a book about that, a cartoon story about how I've been getting by, I guess. And here we haven't had the big problems anyway. We've had smaller problems. And so I guess my book is like a gift from what I've been learning to the people that are having a lot more hard times. You can see by adding words, my picture becomes more enhanced, and also like I can add more details to enhance it even more, like a bird singing. And if we're talking about freedom, the bird might be flying, and so I'm adding little movement lines. The story that I'm making is called Bubble Time, and the characters in my story, when they go out and about, it's like they're inside bubbles, but there's a lot of things that break out of those bubbles. So if you're walking and you're singing, you might be inside a bubble, but your singing will go out, and that might connect with someone else. That someone else could be a bird. And so there is that connection still. And I really wanted to stress that in my stories, that in my story that I'm making, that there is much that we do have, even though there's much that is not working as we would normally have it. I'll show you a few little bits from my book. Here's the family that are the main characters in their story. You can see that they're in a bubble. And the mother's saying that there's lots of people who must be missing their loved ones, and how lucky they are to have each other and the trees. And there she is sending out all these hug feelings to all the people who can't hug anyone, not even a tree. How this one was big enough for all of them. I think the tree would like it too. I think this time of Corona has also been an amazing time of people caring about each other and meeting our neighbourhood people. So in my story it goes, the girl's name in the story is Bimby. As the days went by, Bimby often noticed the same people on her way to the hugging tree. You can see how her father's whistle is coming out of the bubble, as is the little baby's gar and the butterfly. So they notice the mum and the baby with the red pram, the kid and his tricky dog, the woman with the walking frame, the boy with the bike trailer, and the fitness family. You see him singing and him dinging on his bike. That's what's coming out of his bubble, even though he's separate. They are still connected. She started to give them a wave as she walked by, and they started to wave back. Day after day, they didn't seem like strangers anymore. So here's this old woman with her walking frame. The birds seem to like her. So I'll show you a bit how I would do something from that. When you're doing your stories, you can see my story, they're basically stick figures anyway, but never underestimate a stick figure because that gives you the gestures. So I would just start with using pencil, or because I'm on the iPad here, I'm using the tools like a pencil, even though it's not a pencil. So it's like now I'm getting my pen. So I've made my guideline, and then I'll use whatever else I like over it, maybe a pen. And of course, those guidelines can be really just guidelines. You can see I'm not really following them. So the girl in the story, she's been making things out of sticks and string, and hanging them in her favourite hugging tree. And she's made one something to give to this woman that she keeps seeing as a little gift. You see I'm using gestures. And then the woman has then they've hung it onto the walking frame. And actually what happens then is the birds are going to enjoy seeing it too. And so it's bringing some singing, it's bringing some life in. So you see I'm just enhancing my picture, and I can, like when I'm rubbing out the pencil pretty much when I do that. And then they might say something. So what could she be saying? Maybe like the birds are friends too. So for me it's, there's this thing where people talk about isolation, but we're very much a part of the natural world, and that's very much in my story. And so I really like to stress that in my stories. You might have ways that you're connecting with the natural world as well. And then to use movement in your pictures. I don't know what that bird's head's doing. It really enhances a picture. And what might she be saying? Yes, we're not really alone. I need someone who can do the spell check for me. Not alone at all. You see, when you start to add things to your picture, it's not just the one thing. It's much richer that way. So yes, I made this, I'm making this book especially for the people in the cities who might not be getting those connections. if you are making a story, you could start with like 3 parts to it. You might set it up, and then it might get a bit complicated, and then there might be a resolution. You could get 3 bits of paper and fold them in half to make a little book that way. And you might do things like, for example, in the setup, it might be how life was before Corona, and then during, and then after. And I'm really interested in after and during, like what changes are happening. For me, I'm noticing, like with the woman and the girl, there's much more kindness, because that goes with the suffering and the struggle. So I really want to enhance this one. And then with the resolution after, it's like, what do we take from it? What do we take forward? And so maybe what goes forward here is they become friends and they go along together. Well, maybe she's going to walk behind her, actually. So you see, I always start with stick figures. Never underestimate a stick figure. There's a beautiful saying by an old philosopher from China: spontaneity is truth. And so those straight off ideas that you have, hold on to them. They are little gems. And that's why, like me, just doing this drawing now rather than making stuff up, it really does show the truth. I don't even know what's going to happen in this drawing. She's got a little thing on there now. And maybe, just maybe, they're following a bird. So mix up your words and your pictures and catch what's really important. They don't need to be fantastic pictures. It's about the heart that comes from them. That's the important stuff. The movement and the words. You could say, oh, such freedom, because they'll certainly be glad of that when they can be close together again. So I'm sure you've all got plenty of stories, and it'd be great to see everyone else's stories, some of them with mixed up words and pictures as well. So bye for now, with love from me. Take care out there.